Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Play the Tape. I am your host, Derek J. Fields. Listen, we are back with my guest for part two of his testimony, his story, his experience, strength, and hope when it comes to mental health, substance use, and recovery journey. He, again, is a mental health advocate. He's a warrior in this fight and in this war when it comes to mental health issues and substance use disorder. He's a fellow podcaster. He's the host of The Voice for the Voiceless and the creator of the mental health movement, which he will expand on later on in the episode. My brother, my fellow warrior, my fellow podcaster. I love him. Chris, how you doing today?
Good, man. Thank you again for having me back on.
Absolutely. I had to finish your story. I had to finish Sean's story. And then I believe next season 4, will be when I get people back, when I start doing the recurring guests. This is a little foreshadowing to that, but because it's very hard, like I tell people, my listeners and viewers, I say this all the time, it's very hard, and I tell my guests, it's very hard to get everything in an hour. So it's why there will always be content, there will always be substance, there will always be something to gain and to pull from, which I'm not worried about, because everybody has their testimony and their story, and it's unique to them, and it needs to be heard, and it needs to be shared. And I'm glad you're back. Um, Last time we had talked, you had shared about the relationship with your mother. You had shared about how people that reached out to you that were strangers that encouraged you to inquire and reach out for the help that you need. I really like that. I just saw that as God intervening in your life and giving you the direction that you need, even from strangers. That's amazing. And you talked about the people that you had lost, all the ups and downs. And again, we had talked about the relationship with your mom and how that was toxic and how that affected you and your mental and your spiritual and your emotional well-being. I want to take the time in this episode to get to, where was your dad through all of that, living with mom, going to Florida, going back and forth, living with your grandparents, your mom's parents? Where was your dad in all of that? And what was the relationship, if there was one? And how is it now moving forward?
When my parents got divorced, I was about 8 years old. And from there, from what I remember, I went to go live with my mom, um, like almost right away when they got divorced. And, at that age, you don't really know what's going on. Just she's telling you all the things that dad supposedly did, and basically created this whole big story about him, making me afraid of him, basically. And going into like high school, um, I think that fear started coming to the surface. It basically was when my mom found out that I was smoking weed in high school. She was like, "Oh, your dad's gonna be so pissed at you," and just like basically fear mongering, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
just making me terrified of this man. And I haven't touched it ever since. And the dynamic between me and my dad has always been, you chose mom over me. And I think just as a man from a generation who doesn't know how to express what he's feeling or express the pain that he's going through, the best he can do is point fingers and say, you chose mom over me and that hurt me, and that's it. Like, there's no substance behind why he's saying that. And we've had conversations about it. I would say our relationship, it's a little better from when I was a kid. I mean, we talk a lot more. Um, but he's always been very emotionally numb. Like I was just saying, he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't very receptive to things that I was going through, and it was just always kind of like man up, rub dirt in it kind of mentality. And again, it's that generation of men, unfortunately, were told to man up and rub dirt in the biggest possible cuts that they can get. And I think I finally reached the breaking point with him when I tore my shoulder when I tried going to wrestling school. I came home from surgery, and the first thing he said to me, he didn't ask me how I was doing. He didn't ask how the surgery went. Nothing. He just said, "Not to say I told you so, but I told you so." because he
Mm.
said I would get hurt. And immediately after that, I remember making my decision to go to Jersey, to go live with my mom again. And I think now that I look back at it now, I think it was a mixture of my mom basically selling me this lie that going to Jersey would be the best thing for me and I could start over and everything. And it was anything but that. It was quite possibly going into another level of hell when I moved up with her.
Was it a point where your dad tried to be like, wait a minute, let's think about it before you go back and move with your mother? Why would stay here? Let's try to work it out. Let's see what options or resources that we could use to better our relationship. Was that ever something that he said or he tried to intervene at any point?
So it wasn't him intervening. It was more or less saying, you're going to go up there and it's going to be the same thing that has been the last couple years with her. It's not going to be better. And, you know, and I think he wasn't really talking to me like a father, more or less talking to me from a former ex-husband of hers. And like I said, there was never really any emotional support in our relationship. So it was just kind of like, all right, you're going to go up there and you're going to find out the hard way kind of thing. And again, it's that I'm a man, you're a man mentality. And when I told him I was coming back to Florida was after my second unalive attempt and told him how bad it was.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he knew it was going to be bad. He didn't know it was going to be that bad.
When you told him that about your second unalive attempt, did you ever tell him about the first one? Was
Yeah.
he aware? Okay, so he was aware of both of them. What was the response? Because we know the response from your mom.
Right.
We know what we got from her. What was your response from your dad, letting him know, hey, this is number two. I told you about number one, the unalive attempt. This is the second one.
Right.
Like, dad, like,
Yeah.
so.
So the first unalive attempt he didn't find out about until I was an adult when I told him about it. He's like, Mom never told me you went to the Harvard. Mom never told me you got Baker Act. None of that. And again, it was that her trying to destroy a relationship that wasn't strong to begin with. And she was always trying to sell me on the fact that I should be terrified of my dad. I shouldn't be doing XYZ because he disapproves no matter what I do. So when I called him, um, so basically this led up from a conversation, not even a conversation, an argument my mom and I had when I was up there. I was sitting on my bed. I think I was playing something on my PlayStation. She comes down and she starts an argument. That argument turned into 3 hours of her screaming in my face, insulting me. Every name you could possibly think of, she called me, and basically, drove me overboard. I don't want to say run away because I was an adult at the time, but I left the house, shut my phone off, and made sure she couldn't find me because I didn't want to be anywhere around her. My car was blocked in the driveway, so I couldn't drive anywhere. Um, she called the cops on me. Luckily, the cops never found me because that whole situation was awful with her. And I called my dad and I said, things have gotten so bad here. I need to come back home. Like, I know, and I remember saying to him, I know what you're gonna say,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to hear it because I did this for me in an attempt to try and better my life in some sense. And I told him, I said, she has driven me overboard for the last time. And I told him about the second unalive attempt, and he was oddly very like not comforting, but just kind of like, I'm sorry that it got this bad. I'm sorry you had to experience that. And it was just like, oh, okay, you're apologizing. That's the first time I think I've ever heard you say I'm sorry. Um, but when I came back down here and I lived with him for maybe like 2 years before the pandemic, um, him and I's relationship kind of went back to square one, where non-existent, always bashing heads because he's a man child and always drinking and stuff. And finally the pandemic hit and I moved out on my own. Our relationship since I moved out has significantly improved since then. We have conversations. Sometimes they're positive. Sometimes they're just kind of like, again, going back to the ex-husband mentality instead of being the father and try to be understanding of the situation. Um, this recent time when I just blocked her, so since we spoke last, I blocked her off of all access to me. Like she can't talk to me at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him that I blocked her finally off of everything. And the first thing he said was, "I'm sorry it got to this point." And again, it was one of those like, whoa, take a step back. My dad just apologized. Are you feeling okay? You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
I just told him, I said, man, I don't want to be like her. I don't want to just shut my parents out because they mistreated me or they treated me like shit, because that's not the type of person I am. I would say that I have forgiven my mom way too many times. I will 100% admit that. Um, I've given her the benefit of the doubt, and she's overstayed her welcome in my life. And for those that are gonna listen to this, I know that kind of sounds a little shitty, to just kind of push your parents out the door like that, and you only have one parent. But for me, who has endured probably the worst part of my mom, as long as I have, I think blocking was the best possible thing I could have done.
You know what? You said that. That reminds me of what a couple things that I had learned in treatment. Well, a couple. Well, one thing I learned in treatment is, of course, in it works both in psychiatric mental health and in substance use, where there has to be a change of environment, people, places, and things that are conducive to your mental health stability or your substance use, preventing mental and physical relapse. So what they teach us is a change of people, places, and things that we have to change in our lives that won't have us relapse, and that can even equate to be equal to mental health as well as substance use. And I don't think, and this is just me speaking on where I'm from me. I don't believe that you are a bad person for that. I believe that that's something that you have to do for you. Not the forgiving part is great because we have to amend for us, and we have to do that so we can move on. But at the same time, you're doing this to strengthen yourself, strengthen your mental stability, strengthen your recovery journey, because you don't want anybody in there that could jeopardize that at any point. I take my hat off to you for that, because I think that's just important to share that yes, there will be people that you have to cut off. And on the flip side of that coin, you might be a person that somebody has to cut off. That's the thing that I had to learn in treatment is, oh, I might be a people, place, and thing that somebody might has to distance himself from because of the hurtful things and the traumatic things that I did in my mental health and in my substance use that weren't being addressed at the time, where I wasn't getting help for. I hurt people too. So as I was hurt, I gotta forgive them, but distance. As I did hurt, people have to forgive and distance from me. So I just want listeners and viewers to hear what Chris is saying and understand where it's coming from, the dynamic of it. But I agree with you. I there's people that I had to distance myself from, and there are people that had to distance themselves from me. I'm still making up to one of my brothers right now, and anytime he comes into the room, it's getting better, but the tension is still
Right.
there. It's not like it used to be before I stole from him. And me and my other brother have made amends, and that relationship is good. But the other one is, it's not like it used to be, and I pray that and I hope that it does. But he had to push me away
Right.
for a little bit. So I don't believe that you are a bad person for doing that. I just think that's something you have to self-care,
Yeah.
Chris. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one of the hardest things about this whole situation is just society norms. People don't realize like how much that plays with your mental health. It's just like, oh well, that's your mom. That's your mom. You're not supposed to do that because she's your mom. You're supposed
Right.
to love your family. And I don't think many people realize it's just like you have used up all the love and all the compassion and understanding for that person as one can. And that society norm where it just kind of like sticks that knife right under your rib cage is just like, that's your mom. You're supposed to keep her in your life. She's your this, she's your that. And every time that I talk about it with like anybody, outside of like sharing my story on podcasts, um, I kind of feel ashamed, because, and not because like, again, I know I'm not a bad person. Ashamed because there's that one saying that says you can always tell a lot about a man by how he treats his mom, right? And I I detest that saying like
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much
yeah. Me too. It
because
doesn't.
it's
It
just
does.
like,
Yeah, it doesn't put in context. It doesn't put it in
right.
its proper context. Right. Okay.
It's like, okay, like if you could tell a lot by me, a lot about me by how I treat my mom, then you would also try to understand why I have done what I've done with my mom. You know what I mean? And
Yes, absolutely.
we just don't live in a very understanding society sometimes. You have these big podcasters, these big social media influencers that'll just say, "Oh, well, the mother's supposed to do this, and the kids are supposed to respect their mom." And just like, I always feel like every time I see or hear anything from these guys, it's so counterproductive because it's just like, you're this big social media influencer, but you're not adding context, like you said, to somebody's situation.
Yeah, and I think that's what's missing out on a lot of things today in our culture and the society is context.
Right.
Is the oh, let me get the backdrop of how this goes. Not saying that you disrespect her, not saying that we disrespect, because it took me a long time to get to the point where I forgave my dad. Again, it was taught to me, was showed to me, I hurt people too. And I was like, okay, then. So that gave me proper context. Like it just wasn't him
Right.
hurting, I've hurt. And then as I sat back, I had to think about that. And as me and my dad's relationship has grown, yeah, I love my dad. Like that's my dude, that's my guy. Is there certain things that we don't talk about because we could bump heads? Sure. I think that's with any parent child relationship. There's certain things in certain generations that are different. And my life experiences may be different than yours. Uh, and that's okay. But yeah, there was a point where I really wasn't a fan of my dad. I did not like him. Um, he was someone that I did not want to be, and I ended up being him. And but I still forgave him, and I still ask for forgiveness for other people that I have hurt. Okay, for instance, there was this guy that I stole money from a lot of people in lies and manipulation in my drug addiction. Um, in my active using. And the guy came and wanted his money back. And he messaged me and I was at a place to give it back to him. I was at a place to make that amends because I hurt him. I lied and manipulated and deceived in my dereliction to, hey, I need money to support my habit. And I did that to a lot of people. I said a lot of wicked and perverse things to a lot of females that I apologized for publicly. I did a social media thing that I apologized to people about for that because I couldn't remember everyone that I violated. Um, and I was at a place. I was like, "Hey, man, listen, I got 2 years and some months clean. I'm here. I can't send you it because of the platforms that you have, but my wife can. And I understand your reluctancy of trusting me. And it's been about 5 years you've been needing this. And here you go." And I had to make that amends, because I hurt him. And he's still going to distance himself from me. And I get it. I have to take it. But saying that to say is just because you distance yourself from your mom does not mean you disrespect her. Does not mean that you love her any less. Does not mean that you don't honor her as your mother. It's just give me 50 feet.
Right.
So I'm with you. Yeah, like,
And I
oh,
feel like the most useful thing I've heard, through therapy and just like this journey is accepting the apology you may never get.
yes, yes.
And I think that speaks volumes in so many situations. Whether it's an ex, whether it's a kid that may have hurt you, whether it's your parents. I just with her, I know she's never going to change, and I've had hope for so many years that she was going to change, and unfortunately, she never did. So cutting her off and accepting an apology I know she's never going to give, um, has kind of given me a little more clarity on this decision to cut her off. But like I said, it's hard because you have that internal battle with yourself on, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing right by me? Am I honoring my inner child and my boundaries? And I just feel like all those thoughts always clash.
What do you? Is that something that helps you in your journey of your recovery, understanding, like you said? Because I had to come to that realization that I'm never gonna get the apology that I wanted from my dad, uh, and that's okay. I'm okay with that now. It used to make me mad, and it used to irk me and piss me off,
Right.
because I'm like, okay, man, come on, like, that's take responsibility for your actions. Take responsibility for the things that you did. Like,
Hmm.
I have to. Chris has to. We have to. You to heal is to take acceptance of the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the indifferent that you have caused on yourself and others. That's the first step, is acceptance.
Right.
In a 12-step program, is acceptance. Accepting what you've done, where you are, and where you're trying to go when it comes to mental health or substance use or suicide prevention or suicide ideation, suicide attempts, and even survivors of human trafficking, which all of that is under the umbrella of mental health and substance use. So I'm with you, and understanding that has given you peace, right, to
Yeah.
move forward.
Absolutely. That and just holding myself accountable for enabling her to hurt me over and over again. Because, like I said, just forgiving her so many times and letting her back into my life so many times has added to that pain. I let her stay at my house for a week last year, and that was probably the biggest possible step in healing that I could have ever done, because her and I's past is really bad. And when she was talking about coming down here, I said, you could stay with me. And like, I didn't even like think about it. I just said, you could stay with me for the time that you're down here so you don't have to pay for a hotel. And I remember having a therapy session right before she came down. And I said, I didn't think twice when I said it to her. And I kind of scared because I don't know how the hell it's going to go. And when she stayed down here, I had to put her in check a couple times because it's just like, we can't talk about this stuff, or just starting arguments over stupid shit. Um, she wanted to use my car to go to a friend's house so she can pick up some drugs, and I said no, I don't want him knowing my car, like nothing, like just no.
Right.
And she ended up renting her own car because of it. And again, it was one of those things where I think it was a big step for me, and I don't know necessarily if it was the best idea, but like I said, that whole week she was down here, I was able to keep the peace in my house and establish those boundaries between her and I. And when she would step out of line, it's just like, listen, like, you need to like hear yourself when you talk, because the second you start arguments and you don't realize you're starting an argument, like, you have to hold yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And like I
Yes.
said before, uh, I have that issue sometimes where I don't hold myself accountable, but I've gotten better about it. But um, you can't put your hand in the fire more than once and not accept the consequences of getting burned.
I was going to ask you, had you prepared for that visit, or her coming to stay for the week and I know you, as you say, you went to therapy, your therapist, but I was going to ask you, how did you prepare mentally on addition to going to talking to your therapist? Because I think that's important that and the good thing is because sometimes we don't see the mental strife
Right.
coming or the test or the obstacle coming. Sometimes we do, but more times than not, we don't see the mental strife or the mental obstacle coming. It's just okay. Ooh, it's here, and we don't really have too much time to prepare mentally to keep our stability strong in our mental health recovery journey. So, and in addition to talking to your therapist, knowing that your mom will be there for that week, knowing that you had to establish these boundaries. How did you prepare for that? Because kudos to you again, tip of the hat. Hey, I've been burned, I've been forgiven, but this is still honoring my mother. She needed a place to stay for a week, but at the same time, I got to take care of Chris.
Right. I think it was just a matter of, kind of giving myself that pep talk, like you're not gonna lay down for her. You're not gonna just let her walk all over you. This is your house. This is your place of peace. Like she's not gonna ruin that peace. And again, like I said, honoring the inner child that has been battered and beaten all these years because of her. I didn't want to go back to square one. I just kind of wanted to stay strong on those boundaries and make sure that she knows this is my place. This is all because of me, and you have nothing to do with any of the success that's going on right now. And obviously wasn't that harsh about it with her, but she understood real quick, like, this is my house. Like, you're not
Mm-hmm.
gonna disrespect me. You're not gonna disrespect my peace. Nothing.
So, how did that go after those boundaries was established? Was it? Did she understand? Was it pushback? How did that go?
She pushed back a little bit, but like I said, when she would step over that line, I would let her know that line has been crossed,
Mm-hmm.
and it shut it down right away. And I think with it, her not being her own place, she didn't have any leverage over me. She didn't have the, oh, well, you're staying with me, so you go by what I say kind of mentality.
Right.
Um, One of the things that was the biggest line cross that she did down here was she wanted to get a tattoo, like a mental health tattoo. She wanted to get a matching one of what I had. And I told her, absolutely not. I said, no, you get your own tattoo because this tattoo is made specifically for me. And I told her that. I said, if you're going to get a tattoo that fits you, you're not matching with my tattoo. And she kind of like took a step back. She's like, oh, you don't want to get a matching tattoo with me? I'm like, no, absolutely not.
I like it. I
And
like it.
again, I
No.
think it was the realization that she had zero control over me.
And that too, and that you enforcing your boundaries,
Right.
which I think is so. I know later on in the episode we're going to talk about the things that has helped you in your mental health recovery and keep you stable and keep you secure. But I have to talk about boundaries right now because that's what we're talking about. I have to expand we have to expand on the importance of one, setting boundaries for yourself, and then setting boundaries for others, and then if others have boundaries set for you, respecting their boundaries. Boundaries is a two-way street,
Yep. 100%.
and I think that's important to share with the listeners and the viewers. What Chris is sharing right now is the boundaries. And once you set boundaries and you stand firm in your boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
either people are going to respect them or they're going to walk away. And if they walk away, you let them.
I want to add this perspective in there too. I feel like when you're setting boundaries for yourself, you need to have two separate boundaries. You need to have boundaries for the inner child that's in your heart that
Mm,
maybe not fully prepared to deal with the hurt you may endure, and then boundaries for yourself, the adult that can withstand whatever conversation, whatever boundary you're setting, because I feel like while they're in the same being, they're two separate entities. They're two separate journeys of healing. Because when you honor your inner child, when you honor your exterior adult self, I feel like when you're honoring your inner child, you're giving them that blanket, you're giving them that flak jacket to make sure that they're not enduring any more hurt.
mm.
And on the outside, you become bulletproof. You set those boundaries, nothing can hurt you. And when nothing can hurt you, nothing touches your inner child because of that extra boundary you have for yourself.
I want to go pivot real quick back to your dad for a second. You said that y'all relationship is getting better.
Hmm.
It's growing, and that's good. I want to ask, how did that happen? Share a little bit of when did it hit you like, oh, me and my dad, his relationship is getting better. It'll never be perfect. Nothing never will. But it's progressing to a relationship that, okay,
Right.
okay, I like it. I can go talk to my dad about some things. I
Hmm.
can share with my dad about some things. How did that come about, and what things and responsibilities did you take on to yourself to improve that?
So after my brother and I both moved out at separate times, I think he just kind of finally realized, like, wow, I'm all alone now, and I took all the time I had with my kids for granted. I never really appreciated their presence, and it was all only about me. And now that he realizes he's all by himself, he's 52 years old, and it kind of hit him. It's like, wow, I'm in this big ass house, and nobody's here with me anymore. Nobody's coming to see how my day was or nothing. And he started calling me like every other day out of the blue one day, and then we started going out to lunch, and then we started talking a little bit more, and it just kind of like he was showing more effort than he ever has in his entire life. um, there are certain topics that I don't really talk to him about,
Mm-hmm.
but there are also boundaries that I have established with him. Because on the 11th is going to be the 2 year anniversary of my brother passing away. And my family wanted to go to Carolina, where I'm going anyway, for vacation. And I told my dad, I said, dude, I told you this months ago that I have plans to go to Carolina. It's not 100% for me, it's for Santi too. Um, and I told him, I said, I shouldn't have to feel like I have to defend myself and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm an adult. I need you to treat me like an adult because I'm tired of this. Christopher always goes to holiday dinners. Christopher never misses this. Christopher never misses that. But the second I do, I'm an asshole. I'm a bad person because of not attending one dinner out of the 597 ones that I've attended before that. And that's how I've always been treated. It's if I step out of line with my family, I'm always the asshole. But Cameron
Mm.
can do it, and Kayla can do it, and nothing happens then. But I'm the asshole because I don't know. They've always treated me differently.
I can relate to that. I think me and my brother can relate to that. I think they treat us differently.
Yeah,
uh, in regards to who we are, and because I always felt that pressure of I could not mess up. That's why I left home. I didn't
right.
want to be stuck in Chakawinity, North Carolina, in this country town. I'm from it. It's home. And I'm like 25 minutes down the street from it because I'm back here because I want to be able to take care of my parents now because I knew that would fall on me because I'm able to do it. Not taking nothing away from my brother and my sister. They're still working, and they are like maybe 45 minutes away. And now they're getting their home. They're going to be an hour away. Me and my wife are here. We're a little closer if they need us. But that pressure of I can't talk to them about certain things. I can't show I'm struggling. I can't show, I have to maintain a certain perspective, or what's the word I'm looking for? Not perspective. Yeah, perspective. A lens that I'm being seen through.
Yeah,
And as I grew and set boundaries, I'm like, I don't celebrate these types of things anymore. I don't do these types of traditions anymore. I don't subscribe to this way of thinking anymore. And sometimes that can be hard for parents to accept. And why you don't want to do this, why you don't want to do that, because I'm growing and I'm my own person now. So I'm with you with that. But did it? But as he's getting older, as you're maturing, he started to realize that he wanted to spend more time with you. And that's good. I mean, that's a blessing. And you had to set those boundaries with him, and now your relationship is growing and it's thriving, um, the best it can be.
Right.
And I'm happy for you and your dad for that. I really am. I know it's ups and downs, but I just want to say I'm happy for you and your dad for the relationship that y'all are building. I feel like that's very important. Um, let's Can we talk about? I want to talk about the mental health movement.
Yeah.
Uh, what is that? I know we may have touched on it a little bit, but I want to go into the mental health movement. Where did it come from? How did it get established? And what does it all entail?
So I think it kind of dates back to when I was 14, when I was struggling and had my first unalive attempt and everything. Just kind of stemming from when I didn't really have the mental health resources growing up, and uh, basically it felt like nobody gave a damn my whole childhood, and nobody really cared to reach out and make sure that I was okay. And had a conversation with my grandparents a couple months ago, who was like, mom and dad, once Cameron and Kayla were born, just kind of treated you like a ghost, and that's pretty much how I felt like most of my life with my family. It's like, I'm here. It doesn't matter what level of success that I see, they'll never acknowledge it or never care about it. So a couple of years ago, I'd say maybe about 2018, 2019, just before the pandemic, I was part of this group called Suicide Prevention Rocks. And it's basically those positivity rocks that they spread around, um, and leave behind for people to find and whatever. And I decided, I'm like, hey, this is a suicide prevention page. Let me see if I can share my story and let me see where it goes. So I put out a post. It was about 900 reactions that were on it, and that's probably the most like acknowledgement I've ever had in my life talking about my journey, right? And so many people reached out and were like, wow, thank you for sharing your story. I go through this a lot and I'm glad I'm not alone. And, obviously right before the pandemic, I feel like nobody really touched on mental health. It wasn't really a strong conversation
Right.
until the pandemic hit. So fast forward a little, after a couple posts in that group, one of the admins reaches out to me and like, hey, the owner of this page, who is Joshua York, I believe it is, has a nonprofit and a blog that he does for suicide prevention. And he wants you to be part of the team to do blogs. So I thought it was a great opportunity. I'm like, this is the best possible outcome of my pain, as I can share it with people and hopefully people can relate to it. So I wrote the first blog. It got a couple hits, but not as many. And I think it was just kind of like they wanted to put a lid on somebody that was getting a little bit more reactions than their posts were. That's how I feel like now,
Okay.
but not when I look at it back then. I looked at it as an opportunity. So the second blog that I did took me a total of 5 hours to write, because there was a lot in there. It was about my mom, and they never published it. And this is like a month later, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? Like, did I say something wrong in there? Do I need to revise something? Like, do I need to add a trigger warning? Like, what's going on? And they never got back to me. So after I put that out there, and reached out many times, nothing happened. I created the Facebook group Mental Health Movement. Um, and basically, I just wanted people to feel heard. I wanted people to be seen. And I started reaching out to some people that reached out to me, and they kicked me out of that group, because I created my own page. And I remember saying to the admin, I'm like, aren't we chasing the same message? Like, what does it matter how many people are in my group versus your million? Obviously I'm not going to get a million followers, but like, I don't understand the problem. Like, we're
Right.
doing the same thing.
Right.
And then I explained my concern about the blog thing. Like, you guys had me on this blog team and nothing was getting published. You guys weren't sharing it at all. So when I created that page, they took me off of their blog, they took me off of their team, and I never heard from them again. So when after I created the group, my brother Santi was 100% behind it. I would tell him like, "Hey, I want you to read this post and tell me what you think," because it was very it was very heavy for me to put out. You know, there was a lot of heavy phrasing in there. And he's like, I've never seen something so profound in my life. And he's like, this is powerful. And I really hope people start like opening their eyes to this kind of stuff, because mental health is something that the world says they take seriously, but in reality, I don't feel like it reflects what they say sometimes.
I agree with that. It's a very, oh, I can't see it, so it doesn't exist, or
Exactly.
you're lying, or you're faking, and or
Hmm.
until it's too late.
Right.
Oh, okay. So now that I've taken all of these different types of pills, or I've done this or I've done that to garner your attention, oh, now it's serious. I was trying to tell you at a 2 before it got to a 50.
Exactly. And after that post, you know, I kind of started sharing a little bit more of my story, you know, talking about like the days that I struggled with self harm, or the days that I struggled with in high school, and the unalive attempts and everything else. And when I started sharing my story, it started attracting more people. And somebody made the suggestion to make the group private, because, you know, a lot of people weren't sharing their story because they don't want, you know, their loved ones to see it. I'm like, okay, made it private. A lot more people started talking. A lot more people started sharing their story. And, you know, I created it because I wanted people to feel heard. I
Mm.
don't want to be the guy who silences somebody because it's my page and I want to control what everybody says and does. Um, I feel like there's so many people in this community, and it's unfortunate that I have to say this, but I feel like there's so many people in this community that are just in it for either A, the attention, or B, the money. And I really wish that mentality didn't exist, but I feel like it's one of those things that needs to be acknowledged, that there's not a lot of genuine people in the mental health community, unfortunately.
I'm with you. And I've only met, and I can't speak of everyone because I've only met a handful of people, because I've only been to maybe a handful of treatment facilities, but it's been the same ones because that's where I could get into, with the whole insurance thing. That's a thing, and counting beds. And I've even been told it's a bottom line. When you
Right.
go to treatment facilities, it's a bottom line. It's still a business. We have a bottom line. And that just cringes me. It makes me hurt because certain people be kicked out because of certain insurance parameters that, and sometimes we do it on ourselves, because I know if you go to a treatment facility so many times and your insurance and company doesn't think that there's anything that is being done, that you're receiving treatment or you're progressing, then they're going to limit the times that you can go. And then sometimes it's just how many days you can get, and then you're out of there, and you might not even have a recovery plan, or you just scratching the surface.
Right.
And then you get into those certain places where you might find one or two people that are there, that care and have that humanity in them, and you are like, my goodness, where have you been?
Absolutely.
And then you go into others and no one cares. They're just robotic. They're there for their check. They're there to read a script. And it's like, I don't want to go to your group. I don't want to talk to you. Why am I wasting my time to talk to someone who doesn't care?
Right.
So I'm with you with that. I I'm putting together something just like you. It's a little different, but in similar construction of a website that for just Pitt County, because I'm in Greenville, North Carolina, and I'm in Pitt County, and I was like, I have to do it for um, my backyard, but it's similar. It's a web page, a website where it's all in one stop shop. You can go to it to get psychiatrists, therapists, treatment facilities, substance use
Right.
groups, spiritual foundation. That way you don't have to search all these different other websites. You can go to playthetape.me. It's coming soon. Time this airs, it'll be out. Playthetape.me. And it's a one-stop shop to get resources where you can click on these links, click on these organizations, click on these people, read their background, read their bios or their credentials, and reach out to them. It's also a place where people like your group can come and share their letters anonymously. That way they don't have to, if they want. I always tell people that anonymity is honored on my podcast and on my website,
Right.
where you can come share your letter, because I was in treatment and I found that letter and writing is very therapeutic, just like your blog. It's a way to get that poison out. And for Play the Tape, it'll be a way that people can submit their letters, share their experience, strength, and hope, share what they've been through, what works, and they can do it. They can share their name or they can be anonymous. That way they don't have to worry about the scrutiny or the judgment that they feel that they would receive. Just like on your what you created for the mental health movement, which I think is fantastic. I would love to collaborate with you once we off the show and talk more about how we maybe can put our ideas together, because I feel like you, people's voices need to be heard, and not doing this for money or clout or recognition. I just want to reach as many people as I can to let them know that there are people out there that care and there are resources out there and they don't have to be alone anymore. Like,
Absolutely.
that's why me and Chris do this. That's why most of the guests that you've seen on my show, and when you follow Chris, that you will see on his show and his platform. Like, there are people out here that care, that have that humanity, that want to reach people, not for money, not for monetary gain, not for things, not for clout or clicks, but to reach people, as many people as we can, to spread this message. So I'm with you, my brother, with that. And I had to remind myself of that. Like, I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it for people like us. You're doing it for people like us. That voice of the voiceless. Yeah, play that tape, baby. Play that tape. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. Like I said, I feel like with all the resources that we have today, like you said, there's a lot of diamonds in the rough. There's a lot of people that genuinely care. You really have to look and you have to
Mm-hmm.
ask questions, and that's one of the biggest things that somebody from NAMI taught me was to ask questions before you see a therapist. What do they cover? Insurance questions. Therapy treatment. Whatever it is, because obviously not everybody's going to heal the same.
Right.
And unfortunately, there are therapists out there who are just in it for the money and just, oh, how does that make you feel? And that's literally all you'll get out of some of them.
Or
Um,
upping your medication, or let's try this new
right,
medication. I'm like, can I cry real quick?
right. And I wish that there were more people in this community that would do it just for the sake of doing it because, it's a great cause. Um, but I don't know, man. I wish I could have the brain capacity to become a therapist or any kind of do any of that kind of work because um, I feel like I could contribute the best that I can right now, doing what I'm doing.
Same, same. I'm taking it a little step further in my spiritual foundation as a man of God, is implementing the concept of spiritual foundation in psychiatric and substance use. I feel like that's a thing that is, when I was in treatment, I really wanted as a part of my treatment plan, and it wasn't as important as other things. And I'm with this platform, with the radio show, and learning how to become a Christian counselor. In that, for me, is something that I want to take to in integrate more into the institutions of psychiatric and substance use facilities. Uh, that way, people that want it can have it. And hey, listen, there's also aspects of recovery and other ways, and you have a person that's actually here who cares and has that experience and has been where you are. And I've said this so many times, but I keep saying it. I tip my cap to you, and I applaud you and your efforts, because you're doing what you can the best way you can, the best way you know how. And I believe God is going to bless you in everything that you do, because it comes from a genuine heart and place. So yeah, I believe that for you, and thank you. And I would love to be a part of that mental health movement. I
Yeah,
really would.
absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I would definitely love to have you on the podcast here soon. Um, I think all the same for you. I think you're doing incredible things. The guests that you're having on here, the story you tell, while others are telling their story too, is great. So like, I feel the more men share their story, and this isn't a dig at women at all. This is more so, excuse me, what I've seen on my end. Not enough men talk. We all got to have that conversation. Like, speak out. It doesn't make you any less of a man to tell people you're struggling.
Mm,
And having this conversation, I feel like we couldn't have this conversation 10 years ago because it wasn't normal. We didn't have that mentality of we could talk. And I feel like we're finally at that point in society where we're starting to speak out, and you know, unfortunately, those suicide numbers still climb. But we're trying to make a difference. We're trying to
yes,
give men a voice,
yes.
and I genuinely hope that we can get this movement somewhere in the next 5 years.
Where can it go? Well, first, let me back up. Let me get, and I always do this, and I'm always continue to do it because I feel like it's very important to have things to ground us and to keep us firm in our recovery journey. Give me a couple things that you're grateful for, Chris.
Oh man, I'm grateful for my mental health. I think this journey of healing has truly made me uh, just grateful to earn every single day, man. I feel like without my mental health, without the healing journey that I've walked on, I truly don't think that there would be as many people as I talk to about this journey, and seeing so many people grow around me is just, it's so fulfilling. Um, I will forever be grateful for music because music was the first voice that I essentially heard to pull me out of that darkness. So forever grateful for music, and of course grateful for my family, which are my friends. A guy who grew up with a very toxic family, and unfortunately used a lot of my pain against me. I made a new family, and they're all my friends.
Awesome. Fantastic. For me, I'm always grateful for the God of my understanding, my high power, who I choose to call God. I'm also grateful for people like you, Chris, who are my family and who are in this war with me to let other people know that there is hope, there is strength, and through our experiences, we can help them get out of that pit and out of that darkness. And I'm also grateful for humor, laughter. That is the thing that saved my life numerous times, is laughter, humor, being able to just chuckle. So, how can people find Voice of the Voiceless, and how can people get in touch with you if they need and want to be a part of the mental health movement?
So the mental health movement is on Facebook. You'll see a little nice little white fist with the purple and blue heart with the semicolon on the wrist. You can find me on there. For the podcast, you can find me on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Also have Instagram, which is Mental Health Movement Pod, and also have TikTok, which is Fellow Traveler MH.
I love it. And listen, Chris, uh, I thank you again, my brother, for your story, your testimony, and everything that you shared here today is inspiring. And I wouldn't want to do this fight and this war with nobody else.
Feel the exact same.
All my guests, I wouldn't want to do this fight with anybody else but the people I've had up here in this. But and you too, Chris. I love you very
Love you too,
much.
bro. I greatly appreciate you.
Yeah, just reach out to me anytime you need me, and I'll do the same. And I definitely want to collab with you with the playthetape.me and the mental health movement. I think that'll
Definitely.
be something that we could. I think it'll be good. I think it could be a good collaboration, a good collective.
Absolutely
Um,
agree.
but until next time, brother, I love you,
Love you
and I'll
too.
talk to you soon.
Yes,
Peace.
sir.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, that's how we do it here on Play the Tape. Um, if no one hasn't told you today that they love you, I love you. We love you, and most importantly, God loves you. There are people out there like myself, like Chris, like all my other guests in the past, in the present, and in the future that would jump in that hole with you. Jump in that pit with you because we know the way out, or we know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody. And that is true. With peace comes understanding. With understanding comes love. With love comes hope. With hope comes faith. And with that comes recovery. We can do this together. I can't, but we can. I love you so much. And until next time, peace.